This presentation covers resource identification, access, and advocacy. My name is Eleni Fleury, and I'm the Survivor Advocacy Coordinator at S.A.F.E. To begin, we will be discussing some of the many ways that survivors of intimate partner violence and sex trafficking may be connected to S.A.F.E. and hear about the services that are offered. One way survivors may be connected is through local law enforcement. So S.A.F.E. has partnered with local law enforcement to implement the LAP assessment, which stands for Lethality Assessment Protocol. So when officers respond to a call where intimate partner violence has been reported, they will implement the LAP on scene. So officers will ask survivors specific questions that would draw answers that are associated with high lethality. So if the survivor answers positively to any of those specific questions, that means that the protocol would be triggered. And once the LAP has been triggered, the police officer will contact S.A.F.E. with the survivor and give them an opportunity to speak with one of our shelter advocates about the services that are offered and to determine whether there is any safe shelter availability. If the survivor chooses not to speak with a shelter advocate, that is okay, that's their choice. They will be given that information through the police officer that responded to their call. And that way we know that they have been given the information, so in the future if they need to reach out, if their situation has escalated, or if they are seeking non-residential services, they can do so. We do also receive referrals from hospitals where survivors may have gone to seek care if they were in an altercation and sustained any injuries. We do also get referrals from mental health care agencies, social service agencies. We've received several referrals from the National DV Hotline. And we know that individuals experiencing domestic violence are also experiencing homelessness, and both of those kind of go hand in hand. So we know that some of the survivors may have timed out of the shelter that they were staying at because many shelters are temporary. Or they may not be safe there any longer if their assailant has located where they are. We also get some referrals from local churches, our social media page, and our website. And we also get referrals from survivors' friends and families that may be reaching out just to get more information about our services to help support that individual. As I discussed in the previous slide, survivors are also able to reach out through our S.A.F.E. website to identify what services may be available and request to speak to an advocate. On the right-hand side of the screen, you can see an example of the questionnaire that is located on our website. It does ask for the individual's name and email address. It does ask whether this is a safe email to contact, some safe contact times, a phone number, if that is a safe phone number to call, if it's a safe phone number to text, preference for communication, what county the individual resides in. It asks what kind of assistance they are looking for, whether that be housing, employment, financial assistance, transportation, identifying documentation, childcare, or other. And it does ask if they have experienced domestic violence or witnessed domestic violence and what their relationship with their assailant is. Once this has been filled out, it will be sent directly to myself, the S.A.F.E. Survivor Advocacy Coordinator, who will review the information and reach back out to the individual via their preferred method of contact. And that will be an opportunity for the survivor to get more information and help the Survivor Advocacy Coordinator determine what resources and referrals would be the best for that individual. Once a survivor has been connected to S.A.F.E., their first point of contact is typically the on-duty shelter advocate. And from there, the shelter advocate will speak with the survivor to identify their needs and to make appropriate referrals inside the agency. All residential clients who have come into shelter for an intake are referred to the S.A.F.E. Survivor Advocacy Coordinator, who will attempt to make contact within 24 to 48 hours of them staying in shelter. And the Survivor Advocacy Coordinator will delegate and share the client caseload for all residential and non-residential clients with the survivor advocate. And they each will attempt to contact the survivor in person, on the phone, or by leaving a letter in their mailbox. And it's completely the survivor's decision on whether they want to reach back out and schedule an appointment. And something to keep in mind is that residential clients are not required to meet with an advocate during their time in shelter. It's completely their choice, and we respect whatever decision that they make. But we do make sure that we are available and they know that we're here if they do decide to reach out for assistance. If a residential client or non-residential client is seeking any assistance with custody or divorce, they will be referred to our legal advocate. If they are seeking any assistance with personal protection orders, they will be referred to our criminal justice advocate. And if they are seeking any counseling, they will be referred to our clinical coordinator, who will then delegate and share the caseload with our counselor. So that is a brief overview on how survivors are connected directly with the appropriate advocate, all depending on their needs and goals while staying in shelter. An important thing to know is that a client does not have to be residing in our shelter to receive Safe Place services. We do serve both residential and non-residential clients. So something to note is that we actually serve more non-residential clients each year than we do residential clients. So that may be with survivor advocacy, legal advocacy, or counseling. All of those programs are available to any survivor that has reached out, whether they are staying in shelter or not. And all of these services are provided free of charge as well. When it comes to discussing accessing services, it's super important that we understand and acknowledge the barriers that individuals in domestic violence situations may face. And I know a lot of us have heard, why didn't they just leave? Or why didn't they reach out for help? And that's why it's so important for us to have a real understanding of what those barriers are, and also have the ability to educate others on how challenging that really is for survivors that are in that situation. We have to recognize that many survivors are afraid, and fear has been instilled in them throughout their relationship with their assailants, through many different tactics, and many of them are just simply too afraid to reach out and ask for help because they fear the consequences and the repercussions that they may face if they do. They also may feel ashamed, and they may feel like nobody's going to believe them. And we know that survivors are oftentimes isolated from their friends and their families and any support system that they rely on. And a lot of times they're encouraged to stop working, or they even may be threatened into not going to work. And that's just another way that abusers will manipulate survivors into losing their own income and isolating them further so they aren't able to reach out. They also experience emotional abuse and coercion and threats, and assailants will oftentimes use children as well as a means to further manipulate and harm a survivor. They may threaten to contact CPS if the survivor reaches out, or they may say that the shelter will contact CPS if they reach out and that their kids will be taken away. And that is a major reason why many survivors do not reach out. We know that assailants will also minimize abuse and shift blame onto the survivor. So because of that, a lot of survivors may not even recognize the severity of the abuse that they're experiencing, and they may be shifting a lot of the blame onto themselves. And it's also important to understand the inconsistency of abuse as well, and that not every single day may be bad. And a lot of survivors will typically cling on to the good days and the memories, because they love and care about that person, and that's completely normal. And lastly, we have to understand that lethality increases by 75% when a survivor decides to leave an abusive relationship. We know that when they decide to leave for good, that is the most dangerous time in that relationship for that survivor. And many survivors are threatened that if they do leave and if they do seek help, that they will be killed. And that is many of the reasons as to why they don't seek help. When it comes to barriers in accessing services, we recognize the intersection of domestic violence and homelessness, and understand that many individuals may not be able to reach out due to being in poor physical health, poor mental health. The trauma that they experienced may also be preventing them from reaching out. A lot of them may be experiencing some substance abuse disorders, maybe facing incarceration or having a difficult time finding employment as a result of any incarceration. We know that transportation is a huge barrier for so many individuals, especially those coming out of a domestic violence relationship and those that are experiencing homelessness. A lack of education may be, a concern when looking for employment. And we understand that they may also have difficulty with obtaining childcare or daycare. Again, as a result of isolation, they may not have the support systems that they once had, and they may not have the funding to pay for childcare or daycare. And then lastly, we recognize shelter instability. So many shelters, like Safe Place, only offer temporary emergency shelter. So a lot of those stays are going to be anywhere between 30 and 60 days, and sometimes shorter. So as we know, individuals coming out of a domestic violence situation, they're typically starting from scratch, and 30 to 60 days is not enough time to rebuild an entire new life. And a lot of times they will have to, continue going shelter to shelter until they're able to secure more permanent housing and employment, transportation, and childcare. What is an advocate? An advocate is an individual who supports, upholds, campaigns, backs, and defends the interests of a cause or a group. There are many different types of advocates for many different causes and many different groups. One thing that they all have in common is that they're all working toward a shared vision and mission. So for our purposes, the shared mission and vision would be to provide safety to and to empower and advocate for victims of domestic violence and sex trafficking and their families. It's really important to recognize that advocacy is about empowerment. It's about allowing survivors to make their own decisions and not telling them what to do. It's about offering them options and resources that they may not know that they had, and allowing them to make the safest decision for their own lives. When working with a survivor, we are offering them choices like, have you considered your option to file a police report? And not, hey, you need to make sure you're filing a police report and filing for a PPO. We know that they are the experts of their own lives, and it is not our job, it's not our role or responsibility to make that decision for them, but to empower them to regain that control over their own lives so they can make those decisions. Advocacy and the empowerment philosophy. Safe Place believes that people are best able to make their own choices, leading to the safest outcomes for their unique situation. Staff encourage survivors to explore their choices while learning of new resources. In doing so, survivors become confident and empowered. Staff always remain non-judgmental when working with survivors because we realize each person's life should be self-determined. Programs offered are voluntary and free of charge. A survivor may choose to participate in any, all, or none of the programs. Survivors may change their mind whenever they would like and can be assured that their values, lifestyles, and choices will be honored. So what are the goals of an advocate? The goals of an advocate are to assess and identify the survivor's immediate and long-term needs and goals. For example, a survivor may have had a very short amount of time to flee their home, and they may not have been able to bring all of their personal belongings or clothing. So we would work with them to help them identify what resources are available to help meet those needs. Some examples that we've come across may have been they may need medical attention, they may need prescriptions or food, so we would work with them to help them access those resources. And once we have those basic needs met, or we're in the process of working on meeting those basic needs, we can work on identifying those long-term goals that they have and identify what they're wanting to work on with the advocate. And that is where we would begin offering them information, resources, and discussing those choices. And this is also where we're going to be discussing all of their different options and what the potential outcomes may be for each decision. So, for example, our criminal justice advocate would discuss options for a personal protection order and the specific outcomes that may happen if they do decide to file for a personal protection order or if they don't decide to file for a personal protection order. It's our responsibility to make sure that they have all of the information on what all of the different outcomes may be so they can make the best informed decision. And again, it is not our decision, but our responsibility to partner with the survivors to help them implement those choices. And that means really empowering them to take those steps and helping them prepare any documentation or applications or whatever the case may be so they can follow through with that choice. And most importantly, offering them support throughout their journey. Next, we'll be discussing what skills and attributes an advocate should possess when working with survivors. So the first is being passionate. So I know many advocates in this work oftentimes will have a personal connection to the mission and they'll feel very deeply that they want to help survivors of domestic violence and trafficking, and that's great. Everyone working with survivors should have a passion for the work that they're doing, and they should be able to show up and be compassionate and caring and empathetic to those survivors that they're working with. Next, advocates should be knowledgeable. They should be knowledgeable of the resources that are offered in their community and the services that are offered in their community. And it's so important that they have an idea and education about different cultures and different lifestyles that they may come across when working with survivors, and an understanding of what it means to be trauma informed and provide that safe space for clients so we limit the risk of potentially re-traumatizing a survivor. Next, an advocate should be a good communicator. The bulk of their responsibility is going to be working with survivors, collecting information and data, and offering support. And that's both verbally and written. A lot of what advocates do is take notes, take case notes on what they worked on with the survivor, and they should be able to do so objectively and clearly and concisely. Next, advocates should have critical thinking and problem-solving skills and planning skills. Our survivors that we're working with are going through some very serious and complex issues and in very difficult situations, and it's our responsibility to help them work through that. So having those critical thinking and problem-solving skills are very important. As we discussed earlier in the presentation, it's so important that advocates have a knowledge of their limitations and can admit when they don't have all of the answers. Next, advocates should be modeling behavior and demonstrating what respectful boundaries and healthy interactions look like. And that may mean modeling that behavior with their interactions with the client, or even demonstrating healthy interactions and relationships with coworkers in the presence of a client. Now that we've discussed advocacy and the goals of an advocate, I think it's important to discuss what an advocate is not and what they are not responsible for. So first, advocates are not responsible for making decisions on behalf of the survivor. As we discussed, advocacy is about empowerment. It is not about telling somebody what to do. It's about offering resources and choices and helping them make that best decision for their own situation. Second, advocates are not responsible for offering any advice. It is not my role or your role to tell them how you would have handled the situation or how they should be handling the situation. And once again, we know that survivors are the experts of their own lives, and we have to respect and honor those decisions that they're making. Next, it is not an advocate's responsibility to have all of the answers. And we definitely do not want to pretend that we do. We would never want to provide a survivor with any information that could be damaging or misleading or even re-traumatize them. And it's okay not to have the information or the answers that they may be looking for. We can let them know that we don't have that and that we can find somebody that does, or we can do some research and we can help them get those answers that they're looking for. And lastly, it is not an advocate's responsibility to fix a survivor's problems or take away any of their pain. We can, however, provide empathy and support and be there for them through their journey. Next, we will be discussing trauma-informed advocacy. We will now be viewing Becoming a Trauma-Informed Advocate by the Michigan Victim Advocacy Network. And this video provides a foundational overview, addresses common misconceptions, and introduces 6 key principles of a trauma-informed approach.
Trauma-informed care is a crucial foundation to providing services to any crime victim because experiencing any type of crime can be traumatic. And the effects of that trauma can be pervasive and long-lasting in ways we might not recognize right away. Trauma-informed care offers universal precautions to anyone who may be experiencing the effects of trauma, which minimizes the risk of re-traumatizing victims and enhances their ability to access the services they need. While all advocates are committed to helping their clients heal, sometimes we may practice in ways that are not trauma-informed and we don't even know it.
Your hearing is coming up in a couple of weeks. Do you want to go over the statement you're going to read in court?
I don't know.
It's a good idea to practice reading it beforehand so you'll feel more prepared.
Every morning when I wake up, I have to remind myself that my attacker won't be able to hurt me today.
Sometimes I think this hearing is more important to me than it is to him. I asked him to practice reading his victim impact statement, and he seemed preoccupied, like this wasn't at all important or something. And then he said he needed to leave, so we ended the appointment. I don't really know what to do.
Based on what you're telling me, he may have been triggered by having to read his statement or by something else. That doesn't mean the hearing isn't important to him. He might be dealing with the effects of trauma, and that could impact his ability to engage in this process.
I don't know. He didn't act upset or say anything.
That's good to notice, but everyone responds differently to trauma. Would you like to learn more about how practicing trauma-informed care will help you help your clients?
Yeah. Sometimes it's hard to know how to help someone who isn't able to tell me what's going on or even remember all the details of their traumatic experiences.
That's understandable. The good news is you don't need to know the details of someone's specific trauma history to practice trauma-informed care. But practicing trauma-informed care can help your client communicate what's going on with them. At its core, being trauma-informed means providing services in a way that is accessible to those who have experienced any kind of trauma. The Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration defines what trauma-informed care is with 4 key components, the 4 R's. A program, organization, or system that is trauma-informed realizes the widespread impact of trauma and understands potential paths for recovery, recognizes the signs and symptoms of trauma in clients, families, staff, and others involved with the system, responds by fully integrating knowledge about trauma into policies, procedures, and practices, and actively works to resist re-traumatization.
How am I supposed to do all of that on my own?
Good question. It's important to note that trauma-informed care is rooted in organizational and system-level change. It's not about an individual being trauma-informed. That's a common misconception. Trauma-informed practice asks the organization to consider changing policies, procedures, and environments to guide its staff to create safe spaces where trauma survivors can receive services. Even organizations that don't provide victim services can be trauma-informed.
Okay, so how can an organization that doesn't provide victim services be trauma-informed?
That's a good question. Let's break this down into 3 categories: trauma-informed, trauma-specific, and trauma-sensitive. Being trauma-informed doesn't just include the direct care provided to clients, it also asks that all people at all levels of an organization, from the front desk staff to maintenance workers, at least have a basic understanding of trauma. Trauma-informed care ensures the effects of trauma on staff are addressed as well. Being trauma-sensitive means being aware of the impact of trauma and actively working to adjust your operations and interactions to be responsive and sensitive to clients with that potential history. The difference with being trauma-sensitive versus trauma-informed means operating all aspects of your organization or system in line with the SAMHSA principles for implementation I mentioned earlier. Helping someone deal with the specific effects of their trauma is providing trauma-specific services. Trauma-specific services are direct methods that are specifically designed to facilitate recovery from trauma by promoting healing or providing skills. These are conducted by a trained individual like an advocate, counselor, or therapist, and can include services like psychoeducation or cognitive behavioral therapy. Trauma-specific services should be conducted in a trauma-informed way. But while everyone in an organization should be trauma-informed, not everyone provides trauma-specific services. So, trauma-informed care sometimes includes trauma-specific services, but not always.
Oh, I see. So being trauma-informed has a lot to do with the way you provide services, and not just what specific services you're providing.
Exactly. Even if you're not specifically treating trauma, or you don't even know if your client has experienced trauma, you can take some universal precautions to make sure whatever services you are providing are accessible to clients. SAMHSA has outlined 6 trauma-informed principles for how to incorporate the 4 R's into your organization and practice. But while trauma-informed approaches happen at an organizational level, you, as an individual advocate, can take steps to put these 6 principles into practice. These principles include safety. As an advocate, applying the safety principle might look like clearly explaining confidentiality, recognizing and knowing how to respond to signs of trauma, and meeting in physically secure and accessible locations. Trustworthiness and transparency. Advocates can individually practice trustworthiness by maintaining privacy and confidentiality, explaining your defined advocacy role, clarifying and maintaining appropriate boundaries, and explaining the reasons behind policies and procedures. Peer support. As an advocate, this looks like offering victims and survivors opportunities to be with other victims and survivors and offer mutual support. Collaboration. To foster a collaborative relationship with the client, an advocate should share power in decision-making, acknowledge that victims and survivors are the experts in their own lives, and involve victims in the learning process about trauma. Empowerment, choice, and voice. An advocate should communicate adaptive trauma responses and validate resilience, highlight strengths, and allow victims and survivors to provide feedback on the services they receive, and offer choices in meeting parameters to offer empowerment, choice, and voice to clients. And cultural humility and responsiveness. Advocates practice cultural humility and responsiveness by making appropriate referrals to culturally specific organizations, respecting names and pronouns, recognizing the impact of historical and cultural trauma, and committing to ending all forms of oppression. You can learn more about historical trauma in Module 5 of the Trauma Across the Lifespan series. As you reflect on these principles, you can understand why you don't need to know someone's individual trauma history to be trauma-informed. You can implement this approach just under the assumption that it's more likely than not the people you'll be interacting with have experienced trauma, and this approach is necessary for them to be able to access your services. And for those who haven't experienced trauma, this is still a great approach that will have benefits for everyone. You, as an individual advocate, have an important role to play within a trauma-informed organization. Did you notice any differences in your follow-up meeting with your client?
Well, I noticed right away that he was really distracted by all the noise outside the room we were in. So I asked if he wanted to move to a quieter location, and he seemed more at ease after that.
That's great. Making sure your client feels safe and comfortable before beginning a session is crucial. Were they able to practice reading the statement?
I know your court hearing is coming up in a couple of weeks. What can I do to support you around this? Is there anything you have questions or concerns about?
I'm nervous about having to read my statement. What if I can't get the words out? Sometimes I just freeze.
Your feelings of nervousness is very normal. I'm here to help you in whatever way that I can. Some people I've worked with before have said that practicing reading their statements out loud helped them feel more confident about saying it in court. How does that feel for you?
Yes, I can try. Every morning when I wake up, I have to remind myself that my attacker won't be able to hurt me today.
But he still got triggered. So maybe I still did something wrong.
If you come across a situation where a client gets triggered, it doesn't mean you did anything wrong. When this happens, one suggestion is to politely pause the conversation and ask the client if they'd like to take a few intentional breaths or take a break.
I can see this is pretty triggering to read. Would you like to take a break and maybe stand up and shake it out, or take a few deep breaths with me? Or is there anything else that you found works when you're feeling nervous?
One of the things I keep thinking about is how when 911 responders showed up, they started questioning me like I had something to do with this. I felt like they were just targeting me because of the color of my skin.
Thank you for sharing that. That must have been so hard to feel targeted by people who were supposed to be there helping you. And it sounds like it just made the situation even more stressful. It also sounds like it's making the process of giving a statement, which is already difficult, even more of a challenge. You're not alone in having this kind of experience. At some point, if you're interested, I can tell you about a support group we have here. Some people find a lot of support and comfort in talking with others who've gone through similar things. Please let me know if you're interested in learning more about that sometime.
It sounds like you were able to learn so much more about his experience and needs this time because of using a trauma-informed approach.
Yes, and I learned more about all the things he's already done on his own to survive and cope with this. I thought trauma-informed care was just about talking about the negative effects of trauma, but I can see now that it's also about using a strengths-based approach to validate survival and resilience. I now have a better idea of how to work with my clients on using their strengths to make decisions for their healing moving forward.
Exactly. And thank you for watching this video and your commitment to being a trauma-informed advocate. To summarize, trauma-informed advocates provide options to victims and survivors, shift the focus from what's wrong with you to what happened to you, work to minimize re-traumatization, acknowledge the experiences of the victim or survivor, focus on ensuring safety, and emphasize strengths and resiliency. Trauma-informed advocates are one essential part of an organization-wide approach
After viewing the video, Becoming a Trauma-Informed Advocate, I wanted to take a moment and pose a few questions for you to consider and to reflect upon. So first is, how does Safe Place as an organization promote trauma-informed approach and provide trauma-informed care? What can advocates do to ensure they are providing trauma-informed care? And as you have reflected on the video and this information, do you have any feedback for improvement? If so, you are always welcome to reach out to your supervisor and share any feedback that you may have or any feedback that you may have heard from any clients staying in shelter, as we are always looking to improve our service delivery. When working with survivors, it's important that we implement a strength-based approach. What a strengths-based approach is really building on the client's strengths and specifically seeing the client as resourceful and resilient when they are in adverse conditions. And in the strengths-based approach, the responsibility of an advocate is to support the client and to really help them discover and use the strengths in ways that work for each individual. And it's so important to listen attentively to each person to truly understand what combination of factors has previously sparked the ability to break through the challenges that they have been facing, and that leads to a road of healing. Through the strengths-based approach, the idea is that if we highlight a survivor's strengths, it will help promote change within them through positivity. And by highlighting survivors' strengths, we see that it leads to empowerment and it can help their attitude towards their own abilities and what they are capable of. And it really helps advocates guide survivors into realizing what their full potential is based on how far they have already come and how far they can go. So here you can see we have 10 example questions that may be used with the strengths-based approach that you can use when working with a survivor. So you can see a few examples are, what is working well? Can you think of things that you have done to help things going well? What have you tried? What has been helpful? These are all questions that we can use that can help guide conversation to see what the client has used in the past and how that's been beneficial, and we can take those responses and we can use them for the future. We will now be discussing empathy, and empathy can be defined as the action of understanding, being aware of, being sensitive to, and vicariously experiencing the feelings, thoughts, and experience of another of either the past or present without having the feelings, thoughts, and experience fully communicated in an objectively explicit manner. When working with survivors, having the ability to show empathy is crucial. It helps us connect and build and maintain relationships, show compassion, and truly understand those that we are working with. And now we will be viewing Brene Brown's video on empathy versus sympathy.
So what is empathy, and why is it very different than sympathy? Empathy fuels connection. Sympathy drives disconnection. Empathy, it's very interesting. Teresa Wiseman is a nursing scholar who studied professions, very diverse professions where empathy is relevant, and came up with 4 qualities of empathy. Perspective taking, the ability to take the perspective of another person or recognize their perspective as their truth. Staying out of judgment, not easy when you enjoy it as much as most of us do. Recognizing emotion in other people and then communicating that. Empathy is feeling with people. And to me, I always think of empathy as this kind of sacred space when someone's kind of in a deep hole and they shout out from the bottom and they say, I'm stuck, it's dark, I'm overwhelmed. And then we look and we say, hey, you climb down. I know what it's like down here, and you're not alone. Sympathy is, ooh, it's bad, no. You want a sandwich? Empathy is a choice, and it's a vulnerable choice, because in order to connect with you, I have to connect with something in myself that knows that feeling. Rarely, if ever, does an empathic response begin with "at least." Yeah. And we do it all the time. Because you know what? Someone just shared something with us that's incredibly painful, and we're trying to silver lining it. I don't think that's a verb, but I'm using it as one. We're trying to put the silver lining around it. So, I had a miscarriage. Oh, at least you know you can get pregnant. I think my marriage is falling apart. At least you have a marriage. John's getting kicked out of school. At least Sarah is an A student. But one of the things we do sometimes in the face of very difficult conversations is we try to make things better. If I share something with you that's very difficult, I'd rather you say, "I don't even know what to say right now. I'm just so glad you told me." Because the truth is, rarely can a response make something better. What makes something better is connection.
Throughout this presentation, we have taken a look at the skills, goals, and responsibilities of an advocate. In addition, we've discussed trauma-informed advocacy, the strengths-based approach, empathy, and more. Now, we will be discussing how we put all of those components into practice, and we'll give you more specific information on the role of the Survivor Advocacy Coordinator and Survivor Advocate. Survivor advocates provide supportive client services to clients to ensure that their needs are met. In addition, they work with clients and complete initial assessments to identify areas of need and establish the client's goals. They are also responsible for coordinating and linking referrals, so they connect clients to appropriate referrals both inside and outside of the agency. So if a client is looking for information on a personal protection order, they would be referred to our criminal justice advocate. In addition, if they're looking for counseling, they would be referred to our clinical coordinator and so on. Survivor advocates will also link survivors with resources such as housing and making sure that they're aware of the programs that are offered in the community and the funding that is available. And they can assist them with employment, child care assistance, financial assistance, and so on. They are also responsible for providing ongoing support while the client is staying in shelter and beyond. As we've discussed, you don't have to be staying in shelter to receive survivor advocacy services. And many survivors do seek out housing advocacy from their survivor advocate to move forward into permanent housing once they have exited shelter. Survivor advocates also hold a weekly case review meeting with other program staff. So this is where we will meet weekly to discuss any client concerns that may have come up, or if there is any progress that is being made, or if any of us need to bounce ideas off of each other and get suggestions. That is the time that we would do that. They're also responsible for empowering and advocating clients, so offering clients information and options to make their own decisions, and assisting clients with effectively interacting and communicating with outside agencies. And on rare circumstances, survivor advocates will provide transportation to community agencies on a case-by-case basis. This isn't something that we advertise to clients, but it is something that is an option under the right circumstance. And upon intake, when a survivor advocate meets with a survivor, they will outline expectations, which we will touch on a little bit later in this presentation, and just basically go over all of the client's rights and responsibilities and ensure that everyone is maintaining a safe and peaceful shelter environment. And Survivor Advocacy Coordinator, myself, is on call for emergency client needs as well. When a survivor meets with their survivor advocate for the first time to complete their initial appointment, they will complete a client assessment. And the purpose of this assessment is to really get to know the client and understand their situation and past experiences, and help them identify their goals and identify what resources will be beneficial for them moving forward. And as a survivor advocacy coordinator, when I'm meeting with clients, I do like to allow time for the client to share a little bit about their situation if they feel comfortable in doing so. My appointments are survivor driven, so I leave it up to them on whether they would like to share. And oftentimes they've shared this information with so many individuals and workers throughout their journey that they don't feel comfortable sharing, and that's completely okay. And for some, this may be the first time that they have ever left an abusive relationship and have accessed any services, so they may feel comfortable sharing that for the first time and really getting their story out there. And during this conversation, that is when I will be collecting information regarding their background. So discussing whether they have any income, whether they have lost their income, if they have any children. We discuss whether the kiddos are enrolled in school or if they need assistance enrolling the kiddos in school. We discuss if the children have witnessed any of the violence in their home, and if they're interested in any counseling services, that would be the time we would get them connected. We go over any housing information, discussion of where they were previously residing, discussion of whether they have any evictions, if they have any past utility bills that may prevent them from accessing housing in the future, and cover any information related to housing. We discuss education, financial benefits. If they are not signed up for DHS benefits, that is something that I can help them with. And we will discuss any options for food stamps or health care or WIC or anything that they may qualify. That would be the time that we would discuss that. And I like to make sure that their basic needs are being met. Have they gone to the doctor recently? Are they on any medication that needs to be refilled? Are they seeking any mental health counseling? That would be the time we'd go over that information. And also discuss any transportation barriers that they may have. Oftentimes, assailants are the primary individual to take survivors to work. And now that they're out of that relationship, they don't have that support that they had to get to work. Or they might have been isolated from family members like we discussed and lost that transportation as well. So we discussed that and some resources that may be able to help them. And if they disclose any substance abuse or substance use, we would discuss any resources that are available for that. And all of the information that is gathered is used to assist clients in identifying their goals and their needs. And it helps me identify what appropriate referrals I would like to make to both inside and outside of the agency that would be beneficial for the client. And then to wrap up our appointment, I like to discuss the shelter expectations, and we will go over the expectations agreement as well. The client assessment used by the survivor advocate will look like this. So as you can see at the top, we have the client's name and their appointment date. We have a section where we can take notes, and this is the notes that we will take when we're allowing them to share their situation and their story. Any pertinent information that we would want to take down, we will put there. We discuss information regarding their children, whether they have children in shelter or if they're staying with a family member or in foster care, whatever the situation may be. We want to get a full picture. Again, if the children have witnessed any abuse in the home and are interested in any counseling, I would make note of that. And if they are enrolled in school or if we need to get them enrolled in school, we'll take note of that as well. We have a section for income, so we will note if the client is employed, and we'll put down their employer if they feel comfortable giving us that information. We will note if they are receiving any Social Security income or disability income, child support, or any unemployment. We like to take note of their total income as well to see what they're working with. And we also have a section for the financial assistance benefits to see whether they are receiving any, and if so, if they're receiving food stamps, health care, cash assistance, child care assistance, or WIC, we would make note of that. Or if they need to sign up, we would make note of that and put down what they need to sign up for. Our section for housing, we like to take some information down on where they had previously been living and what their goals are for housing. If they are willing and wanting to stay in Battle Creek, then we can offer them some information to our local housing authority, which is Neighborhoods, Inc. And we will offer them some information on apartment complexes and private landlords. If a client is at the point where they have identified housing and they've been approved for housing, they may be seeking financial assistance to pay for that first month's rent and security deposit, so we take note of that as well. And we like to assess what identifying documentation a client may have, as a lot of subsidized housing applications do require that documentation to be submitted with the application. And we have the referral to the Share Center, which is our agency that helps obtain identifying documentation, so we'd make a referral to them as well. We will discuss any mental health care concerns or healthcare concerns. If they are interested in any counseling or any healthcare information, we will get them that. And we will determine if they are interested in any domestic violence specific counseling. And if they are, we can get them set up with our clinical coordinator. And if they're interested in any information on a personal protection order, divorce, or custody, we would take information on that situation and refer them to our legal advocates and criminal justice advocates as well. And we like to assess their transportation situation. We can offer them some bus passes, but we like to just gather information on how they get around and if they have any supports to help them in that way. And again, talking about basic needs, did they flee a situation and they were able to take everything that they wanted? Did they need clothing for themselves or their kiddos or hygiene products? We will determine that and get them connected to the right resources. And then there's a section for any information that wasn't discussed throughout the assessment that they may want some assistance with. That would give them a time to discuss any of that. And then we go over client out dates. So our average length of stay is anywhere between 30 and 60 days. And that information on their out date, exit date will be determined by their survivor advocate and discussed as a group. So they will be assigned an out date and given that information. And then I like to go over the expectations agreement and any follow-up notes that I may have. I use that in order to create a resource packet for the client to review all the information that we talked about because it is a lot. And I ask that they follow up with their survivor advocate with any questions, if they need any assistance going over any of the information, to make phone calls, or if they need any additional support. The expectations agreement was created to be used by the survivor advocates during their first initial appointment with a client. Although all of this information is given to the client upon intake, we do understand that when someone is in a crisis situation and experiencing trauma, they're not going to retain all the information given to them on intake, and that's okay. So this agreement is a great tool to use to highlight the client's expectations as well as their rights and responsibilities while staying in shelter. I will now go ahead and read over the agreement as I would if I were reading it to a client in an initial appointment. I understand that S.A.F.E Place is a short-term emergency shelter for survivors of domestic violence. I understand that S.A.F.E Place average length of stay is 30 to 60 days, and that my out date will be scheduled and offered to me by my S.A.F.E Place survivor advocate once it has been determined. I understand that S.A.F.E Place has an 11 p.m. curfew and only allows 2 nights out for each 30 days of my stay. I understand that I am responsible for indicating these nights out on the sign in and out form. I understand that I will be transitioned out of shelter if I spend more than 2 nights out for each 30 days of my stay. I understand that quiet hour is from 9 p.m. to 6 a.m. and all children should be in the room and quiet during that time. I understand that the main purpose of the agency is to provide a safe family environment. I understand that it is my responsibility to help maintain a safe and peaceful environment by avoiding physical or verbal abuse towards other residents or S.A.F.E Place staff during my stay at the shelter. I understand that if I exhibit threatening behavior towards other residents or Safe Place staff, I will be transitioned out of shelter. In order to maintain the safety and confidentiality of all residents, being picked up and dropped off on property is unsafe. I understand that it is my responsibility to arrange off-site pickup and drop-off locations. I understand that it is my responsibility to help maintain a safe and clean shelter environment. Maintenance checks will be completed once a week to ensure that there are no health and safety concerns. If health and safety concerns are identified, you will have 24 hours to make the necessary changes and notify staff that this has been completed. In addition, you will be assigned a different area of the shelter each day to help maintain. In the event of an emergency where evacuation of the shelter is necessary, Safe Place expects all residents to sign in and out. I understand that it is my responsibility to utilize the sign in and out book to indicate whether I enter or exit the shelter. I understand that it is my responsibility to inform staff if I have questions regarding how to fill out the sign in and out form. I have received a list of the Safe Place rules and guidelines upon intake, including the policy to only hold my belongings for 24 hours after my stay has concluded. I understand that it is my responsibility to retrieve my belongings within 24 hours of exiting shelter. If I am unable to retrieve my belongings within the 24-hour time frame, I understand that it is my responsibility to notify Safe Place staff and make alternative arrangements before the items are discarded. I understand that the use of illegal substances and alcohol are not permitted in Safe Place shelter or on Safe Place property. To promote a safe and drug-free environment, Safe Place partners with local law enforcement to schedule random canine searches on the property. I understand that I will be immediately transitioned out of shelter if law enforcement canine detects drugs and/or drug paraphernalia in my room or locker during these random searches. So once this has been read to the client, I will offer some time to ask any questions or go over any information if the client is seeking any clarification. And after that, the agreement will be placed in the client's file for the duration of their stay and will be shredded upon their exit. However, we may use it as a reminder of the expectations that they agreed to when they entered shelter. Next, we will be discussing confidentiality. And as an advocate, survivor safety and privacy is our top priority. So we want to make sure that when we're working with a client, their privacy and confidentiality is maintained and that we're not divulging any information without the client's consent. And we have to keep in mind that there are going to be some exceptions. So those would be in the circumstances pertaining to the abuse or neglect of a child or vulnerable adult. And if that is something that we suspect as staff, we're not always going to inform the client that we may be contacting CPS or APS, and therefore we would not receive any written authorization from the client. However, as mandated reporters, if that's something we do suspect, we do have a duty, and it is our due diligence to do that. In order to best serve our clients and to help advocate and coordinate services on their behalf, we will offer the client the option to sign a release of information, and this document is required in order for staff to exchange any information regarding either a past or present client. If the client would like Safe Place staff to exchange their information with an outside agency or an individual, they can sign a release of information in the presence of a Safe Place staff as their witness. And if a client doesn't feel comfortable having Safe Place staff divulge any information regarding their situation or on their behalf, that is 100% their choice, and they do not have to do that. Something to keep in mind is that only written releases of information are valid. So unsigned, blank releases are not valid. We also don't accept verbal, expressed, or implied releases of information, as it does have to be written. As you can see, this is an example of our release of information form, which I'm going to go over with you. And at the top of the document, we've got some important information for the client. So it reads, Safe Place must keep information about you private. The only time your personal information should be shared is when you want us to for specific services or if we are compelled by law or court order. You never have to agree to share your information. We will still help you and provide our services. If you do not want Safe Place to share some information about you, use this form to give instructions about what you do and don't want shared, and with whom you want it shared. Before you sign this, someone at Safe Place will discuss your goals and needs, your choices for how to meet those, and the pros and cons of having us share the information for you. You can change your mind about what you want shared at any time, and we will update this form to reflect your decision. And after that information is shared with the client, we're going to write their name and their date of birth, and we're going to check off what information we want to be released. So we've got client name, date of birth, verification of residency at Safe Place, children's names, children's date of birth, and the length of stay at shelter. Now we want to go ahead and collect specific information to be released. And we want to make sure this is specific because we don't want to divulge any information that the client wouldn't want us sharing. And next, we've got specific information not to be released. So the client's going to share any information that they don't want you to share with whoever you are advocating on their behalf to. So for example, I may be working with somebody for housing and speaking with their landlord, and they may not want me to divulge that they have an eviction on their record or that they owe a past utility bill. I would have to honor that, and I would note that information, so I made sure I didn't divulge any of that. And next, we want to make a note of the purpose of why we are releasing the information that we are releasing and to whom we are sharing that information to. So we've got agency name, contact person, and we want to collect all of their address, phone number, email information as well. Next, we want to discuss with the client how we can share that information, whether that's in person, by phone, fax, email, text, mail, or other, and the length of time the information is to be released. So our releases are valid for a period of up to 30 days from the date that the release of information is signed, which we will make a note of. And we again go over that the client understands that they can change their mind to stop sharing this information sooner. They would just have to let us know, and we would make those updates. And then both the client and the advocate do sign the document. And this release of information is kept in the client's file for the duration of their time in shelter, and we also keep it in their file permanently. We are now going to be discussing community resources, and I wanted to take a moment to share that this presentation does only highlight a fraction of the agencies in our community, and this is because if we highlighted every single agency in our community that we partner with, the presentation would be much longer. So for that, we do only highlight the main agencies that we work with. However, we do have a community resource binder, which is available on the P drive, and that demonstration will be shown on the next slide on how to access that information. And another thing to keep in mind is that resources and funding availability is ever changing. So at the time that you're watching this video, resources may have changed or funding may have run out for specific programs, so just keep that in mind. The resource binder can be found on our P drive. So you are going to click on this PC and access the P drive, and once you have gotten onto the P drive, you are going to click the shelter folder, followed by the client resource binder, and there you can see all of the resources that we have in our community. Each folder will contain documentation, applications, and additional information that can be printed off and given to a client, or that you can just review to be knowledgeable about the resources in our community. To begin our discussion of community resources, we are going to be starting out with housing. And first, we are going to be discussing Neighborhoods, Inc., which is our housing authority for Calhoun County. And they have several different programs. First, we will highlight the Housing Choice Voucher Program, which is housing assistance vouchers for individuals that are experiencing homelessness. They must have a letter verifying homelessness, income, and valid identifying documents. So upon intake, clients are given the information to Neighborhoods Inc. and information on the Housing Choice Voucher, along with a sheet that highlights the criteria that they would need to qualify, and also a letter verifying that they are homeless, which is something that they will need to qualify for the program. Next, they have Rapid Rehousing or ESG funding, which stands for Emergency Solution Grant Funding, which is assistance with security deposit and first month's rent. And next, we've got the S.A.F.E funding, which is COVID Emergency Rental Assistance Program. And that was designed to keep Michigan residents who have fallen behind on their rent or their utilities in their home if they fell on hard times as a result of COVID-19. And lastly, they have the home ownership and financial education. So they work with individuals to make informed choices about managing their finances and moving towards the goal of home ownership. So they do offer classes. They are not offering these classes at the moment, but I do know that they are in the works of getting those back up and running. And in the past, we have had case managers and housing advocates from Neighborhoods Inc. come into our shelter every other week to help provide on-site case management for housing and to help our residents sign up for their different programs, which worked out very well. We are not having that as an option at the moment, but we also hope to get that back up and running very soon. The next housing resource I would like to highlight is through Summit Point, our local mental health care agency. They do offer a housing program. It is called the Permanent Supportive Housing Program, or PSH as you might hear it called. And to qualify, individuals must be chronically homeless and also experiencing a disability. So this program does offer long-term rental assistance. So if the individual does have income, they would pay 30% of their income towards the rent. And if they don't have any income, they would pay $50 a month. And while they are in this program, they are offered supportive case management services, and that is for the duration of the program. And as long as the individual is complying with the terms of the program, there is no time limit on the program. So during an initial appointment, when I'm meeting with clients, I'm looking for that history of being chronically homeless and information on whether they are experiencing a disability. And if those two pieces are identified, I will go ahead and have them sign a release of information if they're interested in the program and get them connected with the housing advocate over at Summit Point. And I do want to highlight that they have also been great in making arrangements to come into shelter. We know that a lot of our clients have transportation as one of their barriers, so this has been very helpful in getting them signed up for these programs. Next, we are going to be discussing the Battle Creek Housing Commission and the programs that they are currently offering. So one that most people know is Section 8 housing. There are currently no Section 8 openings at this time, and they're not accepting applications. They typically open up their waiting list application process every April, and it's usually open for about 4 to 5 days. So around that time, us advocates will help the client sign up online, and it will be a lottery system. So if the client's name is pulled, they will be put on the waiting list. And because anybody can apply for this Section 8, it is not just for those experiencing homelessness. The waiting list can be quite long. And something else to consider is that the client does have to have all of their valid identifying documentation to apply onto the waiting list for Section 8. Next, we've got their public housing program. So this is housing for individuals with disabilities, the elderly, or families, and there is no income required to apply for this housing. It is all based on credit and criminal history. And once again, they must have all of their valid identifying documentation. And I do know that they will actually not process any applications that don't have all the valid identifying documentation included with it. and they will simply throw it out. So that is very important that they have all of the pieces for every single member of their family. And lastly, we've got the home ownership program, and this program allows families with children to rent and potentially purchase a home on one of the Housing Commission's scattered sites. And the family's total household's income must exceed $18,000 a year to qualify. And this is not a program that we refer to often, simply because when our clients are entering shelter, they're not typically in a position to purchase a home. So we do not refer to this often, but it is an option available. Continuing on with our housing resources, we do have local churches that may offer some financial assistance, whether that be with rental payments or security deposit. Usually when referring to those churches, they're going to need a referral from 211. So I know a local church here called the Chapel Hill. They do offer $50 for rental payment or towards the rental payment and have helped out several of our clients. And next we've got the Fair Housing Center of Southwest Michigan, and they offer education, enforcement, and advocacy to help eliminate any housing discrimination. So clients may share with us information about being wrongly evicted, or they may believe that they are being discriminated against for a variety of different reasons. That is a resource that we can refer them to so they can have their voices heard in that way and have somebody investigate and advocate on their behalf. S.A.F.E Place does also have some assistance with housing. So we recently did receive a HUD grant that allows us to assist with first month's rent and security deposit. And this is not something that we have advertised or posted. However, if a client does disclose that they have been approved for housing, their advocate will discuss the information and the application process with them. So we do have an application that they will fill out. We are looking for somebody that does have some form of income and that they will be able to continue paying even after they move out of shelter and after we've helped pay with that first month's rent and deposit to ensure stability. We are also looking to make sure that they don't have any past utility bills that might prevent them from being accepted into housing, and we are looking for a lease document. Once the client has all of that information and they can submit that to their survivor advocate, they will review that information, and if approved, they will submit a request to determine whether we are able to cover the full amount. And we have been able to spend several $1,000s helping many different clients transition into new housing, which has been really great for many of our clients. In addition to what we can offer for our HUD funding, we do offer general housing advocacy. So we offer clients apartment listings, private landlord listings. We can assist them with filling out and faxing different applications to different housing agencies or apartment complexes. And we do coordinate with local housing agencies. We discussed Neighborhoods Inc. We work with them as well to make sure that the client is getting information on every single program that they may qualify for. And I also wanted to note, as we did in the beginning of this presentation, a client does not have to be staying at S.A.F.E Place to receive housing advocacy or survivor advocacy services. I've helped many people offering them apartment listings, private landlord listings, and even going through the process of getting them approved for the HUD funding to pay for their first month's rent and deposit. Now that we've reviewed the housing resources in our community, I did want to take a moment to acknowledge that we are experiencing a housing crisis, and that is not only in our community, but across the country. Right now, there is a serious lack of supply of affordable housing units in our community, and there is chronic underfunding for the housing vouchers and subsidies. In addition to that, rental costs have increased dramatically, so we are finding that our clients are having a very difficult time finding an affordable apartment or landlord to rent from, and those that are on waiting lists for subsidized housing are on waiting lists for a very long time because there is just a lack of rental units. So this is just something that I would like you to keep in mind, that although there are housing resources available, there are several different factors that are impacting our clients in how they are able to access housing opportunities in our community. Next, we will be discussing transportation options in our community. And first, we're going to highlight the Battle Creek Transit. So this is public transportation, and that is available to all Battle Creek residents. And unfortunately, they have recently had to make adjustments to their transportation times due to different staffing shortages. So the fixed route of service will only operate now from Monday to Friday from 5:15 a.m. to 6:45 p.m. And they do not provide any service on Saturday at this time. It has been temporarily suspended. And this, unfortunately, is going to have a very negative impact on our clients and how they're able to get around on weekends, and add to the barriers that they're already facing for transportation. However, if they do need to utilize transportation during the hours that it is available, Safe Place staff can offer up to 16 bus passes while they're staying with us, and the shelter advocates at the front desk are able to also give bus passes out to clients if their survivor advocate is not available. So although it is not many bus passes, they can use that to supplement until they're able to purchase some on their own or obtain any bus passes for employment through different agencies. Next, we've got the Battle Creek Teletransit, and that is a door-to-door public transportation service, and that is available to Battle Creek residents only. And something to note, that this service is available to anyone, but it's primarily for ADA certified customers. So when they do have space available on a case-by-case basis, they can offer that to the general public. And their operation hours are from Monday through Friday, 5:15 a.m. to midnight, and Saturday, 9:15 a.m. to 5 p.m. So the Teletransit does offer additional hours and more hours than the regular Battle Creek Transit does. However, you are going to find that the fare for the Teletransit is a little bit more. So the reduced fare for those that qualify for the senior citizens or those who have a disability, their fare is going to be about $3. And those that don't meet that, so just the general public, they're going to be paying $7 one way, or $5 after 6:45 p.m. And next we've got BC Go. This is also offered through the city. It is a pilot program, and it is funded through the Michigan Department of Transportation. And it is only expected to operate for a period of 12 consecutive months. So please keep that in mind. They do operate from 6 a.m. to 9 p.m. Monday through Friday, and 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. on Saturdays. And at this time, they're not operating on Sundays or any major holidays. And something cool about this is that they can book rides through the app, or they can go ahead and just give the Battle Creek Transit a call and they can schedule a ride that way as well. So for the fare prices, it is based on a structure of how many miles an individual is looking to go, and it starts anywhere from $3 to up to $15. So depending on how far the client is wanting to go, they can check the chart that is posted on the Battle Creek City website. And lastly, we have Community Action. So they do offer transportation for seniors 60 years and older, and individuals that may be experiencing a disability that are 18 years and older. And they do have vans for transportation that do have lifts, and some that don't have lifts as well. And that is for individuals that are going to medical appointments, employment, meal centers, or grocery shopping, or any other necessary trips that somebody may have. And their service is provided in the Battle Creek area Monday through Friday from 8 a.m. to 4:30, and in the Albion area Monday through Friday 8 a.m. to 4. And in order to schedule a ride, you have to do that 24 hours in advance, and it is subject to availability. Next, for transportation resources, we do have some information on employment transportation. So our local share center, they do offer bus passes for individuals who have recently obtained employment, and they do have to show proof of employment. I will say that it is a very, very limited amount of bus passes that they're able to give each person per year. I want to say that it is only around 6. So very, very limited, only to be used to kind of supplement until they're able to get maybe their first paycheck or find alternative resources. In addition to the Share Center, the Salvation Army also offers some bus passes for individuals that have recently obtained employment. And again, they've got to show some sort of proof of employment, whether that be a work schedule or a letter from employment. Next, we've got non-emergency medical transit. So for those of you that don't know, you can actually schedule a non-emergency medical transport ride through the insurance company Medicaid. So that may be if they don't have a way to get to and from doctor's appointments or to receive any items or services that would be covered by Medicaid. And to get an appointment, they will have to call the number on the back of their insurance card. And it is requested that they make that appointment for the ride up to 72 hours or 3 days prior to their appointment that they are needing transportation to. And if you are interested in seeing other non-emergency medical transport options, there are several different options that would be located on the P drive that you can check out. Next, we will be discussing employment resources in the community, and we will be starting with Michigan Works. So they offer a variety of different programs and services that assist individuals with job placement, resume building, interview skills, and they also have many different hiring events to help individuals find a position that they are interested in and something that would be a great fit for them. And something really cool about Michigan Works is that they have partnered with Community Action and New Level Sports to offer a hub in a central location that would be in an individual's neighborhood. And at the hub, they have different employment specialists that are dedicated to offering support to individuals to work towards their professional goals, which is really cool. And we're lucky to have 2 of those different hubs in our community. Another great program that many individuals might not know that Michigan Works has is that they offer youth services. So they have different programming that can help young adults in navigating their path to success. And some of these strategies that may be available are re-enrollment in school, credit recovery, GED preparation, job preparation, skills for employability, paid work experience, transportation assistance, college and career development, scholarship assistance, and much more. And they also do serve veterans, so they have career advisors that are available to help veterans and their spouses in finding a job. So again, helping with improving interviewing skills, building resumes, leveraging social networking, and other assistance to veterans. And they also offer the Clean Slate program. So if any of our clients have a criminal record, there is a new law in Michigan that allows them to erase eligible criminal records, and that is to help break down some of those barriers when accessing employment. So they do assist with that, although their waiting list for the program is closed right now. Clients can keep checking back in to see when it's going to become available. Next, we've got Michigan Rehabilitation Services, or MRS as you may hear it referred to as, and they offer employment assistance to individuals experiencing a mental or physical illness, and their goal is to just support eligible individuals to prepare for, secure, retain, advance in, or regain employment. Next, we've got the Share Center. They have recently hired an employment coach to help with resume building, interview skills, and job search. Next, we have the Goodwill, which offers job advancement training programs and different financial literacy classes. They also offer youth programming, so for any of our clients that have any kids that are age 16 and older, they do offer a summer work program, which is a paid work experience, which would be a great opportunity for many of our clients' children. And they also do offer some assistance with free income tax preparation, so keep that in mind. Next, we've got the Women's Co-op. They offer a variety of different employment assistance opportunities, and they have a work experience program that allows their members to develop valuable employment skills, and they also assist with obtaining interviewing clothing as well. And Safe Place also offers a list of local staffing agencies, and in addition to that, we do have a list of agencies that offer felony employment opportunities as well. We will now be discussing resources for education in our community, and we will first be discussing the Women's Co-op. So the Women's Co-op is a group of women helping women working together to improve lives, families, and their community. And they provide a network of support that provides resources for education, career training, and life management. So for their programming, they do offer life enrichment classes. And the first class that they offer is called the Nurturing Parent class. And that's a 10-week course that demonstrates and emphasizes the importance of raising children in a warm and caring home. And that program provides parents with the knowledge and resources to raise respectful, caring, and cooperative children. And next, they've got a Keeping Families Together program, and that is an 8-week program course for parents with a history of neglect or abuse, and they work with the client on self-assessment, reflection, or self-correction. And next, they've got a Bridges Out of Poverty class, and that one is a 10-week course that introduces participants to information and strategies for moving out of poverty. And lastly, they have a Building Resiliency workshop, and that one is also a 10-week course that explores and strengthens one's sense of self-control, optimism, and abilities and methods for change. And it really breaks down the barriers through self-reflection and building resiliency through self-correction. Now, moving on to the education and training that they provide at the Women's Co-op. The first is they offer an industrial sewing program. So that is 8 weeks of beginner instruction on basic machines, and then they have also advanced instruction on industrial machines as well. And then they have a frontline reception program. So that is an 8 to 12-week program for administrative assistants. So they learn administrative tasks, get more information about technology, Microsoft Office, and really learn customer service skills with hands-on experience. And they also do provide employment referrals and connections upon the completion of that frontline reception course. They also have a 6 to 8 week commercial janitorial program, which provides them with real hands-on experience. Again, they're going to have employment referrals and connections upon completion. And they also have their GED preparation and testing. And lastly, they have their on-the-job paid training placements at different work sites throughout the community in manufacturing, production, and just in general labor. They also have their co-op network. And through this network, they are able to help provide some assistance with some emergency services. So that may be related to homelessness, eviction, hunger, personal and household items that they may need. They also provide networking, so networking together to use their talents and personal resources to help each other. So that may be assisting them with rides or assisting with babysitting. And they also have a co-op store, so active members of the co-op can earn dollars for working or attending school or engaging in any community service. And any of the dollars that they earn can be used at the co-op store. And a lot of the items that can be purchased with these dollars are like households and personal items. So not only do they provide great educational opportunities, but many other supportive services as well. Next, we've got the YMCA. They do offer GED and pre-GED curriculum and also provide private tutoring as well for those that are looking to get their GED. And in addition, we've got Battle Creek Public Schools. They also offer adult education and GED prep. Next, we've got Kellogg Community College. So they offer what is called IACT job training. And that stands for Innovative Accelerated Credentialed Training, which is designed to offer short, accelerated training programs to prepare for today's workforce and employment needs. So basically, they're providing rapid training in services with one goal in mind, and that's to help individuals get a job or get a pay raise. And with IACT, you can quickly become qualified to fulfill and succeed in a job. They also have career coaches, financial literacy advisors, instructors, and employers that are ready to help. So they offer the Kellogg Advanced Manufacturing Assembly Training, Microsoft Applications Training, Nursing Assistant Training, Phlebotomy Training, and Retail Service Training. And some of those trainings are available and free for eligible participants, and those that are interested would just have to go to the Kellogg Community College website to fill out an application to apply. And last, we've got VOCES, and they serve the Latinx community of Greater Battle Creek and Southwest Michigan. And they offer elementary literacy programs as well as after-school programs for 5th through 8th grade students in the Battle Creek area. And in addition to that, they do offer in-person interpreting services, phone-based interpreting, and document translation services. They also offer Workforce ESL, which is English as a second language class. Next, we will be discussing financial assistance resources, and we are going to be starting with DHHS, or the Department of Health and Human Services. So they offer a variety of different financial assistance, and all of which can be applied for by our clients through mibridges.michigan.gov, or they can contact the DHS office directly to apply. First, we're going to be talking about cash assistance. So temporary cash assistance is available for eligible pregnant women and low-income families with minor children. And the SDA, or State Disability Assistance, also provides cash assistance to eligible disabled adults. And so if somebody is the caretaker of a disabled person, or they're age 65 or older, they may be eligible for that state disability assistance. And those that are wanting to apply for cash assistance will have to take part in what is called the PATH program. And PATH stands for Partnership, Accountability, Training, and Hope. So this program is a 20-day assessment period during which barriers to employment are identified and caseworkers work with clients individually to connect them to resources to address these barriers. Next, we've got child development cost assistance. So that is child care assistance. So if somebody is not able to afford child care, payment assistance may be available for them through DHS. And those that are interested in applying must be employed, attending college, or completing high school, or participating in an approved counseling treatment program to qualify, and that is all based on income eligibility as well. Next, we've got temporary food assistance for eligible low-income families and individuals. In addition, college students in Michigan are now eligible if they meet income and other program requirements and are enrolled at least half-time in an occupational program that leads to employment under the Strengthening Career and Technical Education for the 21st Century Act of 2018. So they are also able to receive benefits, and this is all based on income. Next, we have WIC, which stands for Women, Infants, and Children. And WIC is a federally funded special supplemental nutrition program. And WIC participants will receive help with nutrition education and breastfeeding support. They will also have assistance for purchasing healthy food options and formula. They also have access to a nutritionist as well. And they also have the nutritionist available to help monitor the children's well-being and can get them connected to the health department if they need any vaccines or if they need any medical assistance. Next, they do offer healthcare coverage, so they have several medical assistance programs that are offered, and eligibility is determined by age, income, and financial resources. And lastly, we have the State Emergency Relief, or SER, and that is available for individuals that may be facing conditions of extreme hardship or any emergencies that may be threatening their health or their safety. So they do offer assistance with mortgage payments, rental payments, heat, past utilities, energy and weatherization for homes, home repairs, burial costs, and more. So as I mentioned before, if a client is interested in any of these programs, they can work with their advocate to apply for assistance online. Next, for financial assistance in our community, I do want to highlight some of our local churches. So we have had some local churches offer financial assistance when it comes to helping purchase clothes for clients that may be coming into shelter and don't have anything, helping with gas cards, or helping with relocation assistance. We've partnered with some churches that have helped purchase bus tickets to relocate for safety purposes. So having those connections with churches has been very helpful. And next we've got community action. So they do offer emergency rental and utility assistance. So this may be with eviction prevention, or if a client has any past utility bills as far as gas or electric, they may have funding to help make those payments. They also do have some housing assistance with weatherization, so maybe replacing wall insulation, appliances, any glass repair that needs to be done. They also have assistance with minor roof and foundation repair. And all of that is available for low-income homeowners in Calhoun County that are 60 years of age and older. Next, we've got the Consumers Care Program, and that pays a portion of your monthly bill, and any past due balance you have accrued will gradually be forgiven. So this is a great program for any of our clients that may have past utility bills, which are preventing them from obtaining new housing. This may be a great program for them. Moving on, the Salvation Army also provides emergency rental and utility assistance, and True North provides emergency heat and energy assistance. And for any additional financial assistance, we do refer clients to contact 211, as they have different information and referrals to health and social service agencies and organizations, and we'll be able to point our clients in the right direction to receive the help that they need. Next, we'll be discussing identifying documentation. So we know those that are fleeing domestic violence situations are oftentimes leaving in a hurry, and they may not have the identifying documentation they need to apply for housing or for public benefits. Or we see a lot of times assailants will destroy a survivor's documentation to further control them and manipulate them and create more barriers for them to leave the situation and access the resources that they need. So we do have agencies here in the community that can help, one of those being the Share Center. So they have a program at the Share Center that can help with obtaining IDs and birth certificates. They also have individual case managers and family case managers that can work with them, not only with the IDs and the birth certificates, but on any other situation that they may need help with. And S.A.F.E Place also offers some assistance with obtaining identifying documentation on a case-by-case basis, and that is as the funding is available. For healthcare resources in the community, we do always refer our clients to Grace Health. And as you can see, they do provide a full range of services. So they have family practice, pediatric, dental, and internal medicine. They also have behavioral health, OBGYN, optometry, physical therapy, and more. And for medical, they do accept most commercial insurances, Medicaid and Medicare. And something great about them is that they also see patients who don't currently have insurance. And for dental, they do accept Medicaid as well, and anybody who qualifies for the senior millage dental. Next, we have sexual assault services, and that is through Bronson. And they offer what is called the SANE program. So that is the Sexual Assault Nurse Examiner program. So if we do have any clients that disclose that they have been sexually assaulted, we do always refer to this program. They have SANE nurses that are available 24 hours a day and can provide the medical forensic examination for those victims of sexual assault. They also have a 24-hour crisis line and offer victim and survivor advocacy, as well as a children's advocacy center. They do also provide counseling for adults and children survivors of sexual assault, as well as animal-assisted therapy. And they also do provide educational presentations in the community as well. And next we've got Bronson Battle Creek, which is our local hospital. So S.A.F.E Place will cap clients with any healthcare concerns to the hospital if they are non-emergencies. If they are emergencies, shelter advocates are always available to assist in contacting 911 or calling an ambulance, or we can arrange a ride. Next, we will be covering mental health resources. And the main agency that we refer to here at S.A.F.E Place for mental health is Summit Point. And they work with individuals that are experiencing any mental health illness or developmental disabilities. And they will work with them to help regain their independence and confidence and to learn those necessary skills for success. Do offer counseling for both adults and children. So for those of our clients that are looking for mental health specific counseling, we would refer to Summit Point, and those that are looking for domestic violence specific counseling, we would refer to our clinical coordinator to schedule an appointment. In addition, they do have First Step, which is a psychiatric urgent care center. So anyone needing any mental health or substance use services can walk in, and appointments aren't necessary to speak with a mental health professional. And they do accept all insurance, and even if an individual doesn't have insurance, that's okay, they can still accept them. And if there are any language barriers, they do offer translation services as well. So if we have a client that is experiencing a mental health crisis or is in need of immediate medications, we can send them to First Step. And for those that are needing medications, they can work with a team who can evaluate the situation and determine whether they need new medications and get them set up with counseling or any residential or outpatient treatment programs. They would get them set up with those as well. In addition, they have what is called an ACT team, which stands for Assertive Community Treatment. And they provide service to adults 18 years and older who are experiencing difficulty with living independently due to their ongoing symptoms of mental illness. So that is also an option that they offer. And they do have peer support specialists and recovery coaches, and those are going to be individuals that have some similar lived experience and are just available to offer support and encouragement to those that are seeking those resources. They also offer an intensive crisis stabilization service, which is essentially a mobile service to all children and youth ages 0 to 21 who reside in Calhoun County. And this team will provide on-site intervention with the identified youth and their support system, so their parent or whoever they are staying with here at the shelter, whoever has guardianship of them. And they can meet anywhere in the community. They can meet in the shelter, at their home, school, or any other community space. And what they do is they really help on assessing what the crisis is, and they utilize de-escalation techniques and will work with the child and the parent to create a plan for some long-term care. And we have recommended this program to clients who have had children that have been in crisis. So again, they could use that at the shelter, or they can take that information with them moving forward if they need those services. Lastly, they do offer what they call care management or case management services to those that reach out and get connected for counseling, and they work with them to gain access for anything that they may need, such as medical, social, education, or other services in the community. Next, we have sexual assault services. I know we did touch on them regarding the healthcare services that they offer. However, I did want to remind you that they do also offer some mental health counseling services for survivors of sexual assault as well. So they've got their 24-hour crisis line. They do have their children advocacy center. And in addition, they've got their SANE nurse examiner program as well. Moving on, we will be discussing substance abuse resources. So in addition to mental health, Summit Point does also offer services for substance use disorders, and for individuals seeking help, they can reach out to one of their professionals and they will help them work towards recovery. Next, we have Southwest Michigan Behavioral Health, and they offer a hotline that is available to those who are seeking substance use resources. And they will complete an intake over the phone with the client to determine what services they are eligible for and what resources and referrals they can utilize. And that may be for outpatient or residential treatment programs, or it might just be helping get them connected to different meetings in the community. And many of those AA and NA meetings are offered at different agencies here in the community. So we've got the Alano Club, Share Center, and local churches that do offer those groups and meetings. For legal assistance, we are very lucky to have our wonderful legal advocates and our criminal justice advocates. And something to note is that our legal advocates and our criminal justice advocates are not lawyers. So that is something that we do have to let our clients know, that they are advocates. So our legal advocate, Margot, she can offer assistance and information with anything related to custody or divorce. And Margot works closely with Legal Services of South Central Michigan. And they do have lawyers and can help provide free advice and representation to low-income families and older adults. And that's going to be in Calhoun, Berry, and Eaton County. And our criminal justice advocate, Melissa, can offer assistance with filing for personal protection orders, which we collaborate with the Circuit Court Clerk's PPO office to do so. And she can also help fill out and file the paperwork, as well as assisting the client in hiring a process server to have those personal protection orders served. And both Margot and Melissa can accompany clients in court to offer them some additional support. Next, we will discuss infant, children, and youth resources. And first, I want to highlight Community Action. They offer both early Head Start and Head Start. So Early Head Start provides full-year, full-day childcare for employed low-income families with children, and that is from birth to 3 years of age. And in addition, they do also have some services that they offer to expectant mothers. For Head Start, they are providing a classroom environment for children who are 3 and 4 years of age, and they serve Calhoun, Berry, and St. Joseph County. And those interested can work with their survivor advocate to access an application and if they need help applying, their advocate will help them with that as well. Safe Place does offer clients a list of DHS approved childcare and daycare centers, and we also work closely with local schools to ensure that their children are enrolled in school. And something to keep in mind is that children must be enrolled in school within 3 business days of entering Safe Place. And we do understand that the process may take longer than 3 days, considering that many parents have to obtain specific documentation that they might not have for the enrollment. So as long as the client is actively working with their advocate and moving the process along, we do understand that it does take longer. We do also partner with the Charitable Union, and they offer infant clothing, supplies, and formula. So we do offer our clients a voucher to the Charitable Union, and they can access those resources free of charge. The BC Diaper Network does offer diapers to families in need as well as alternatives. They do also offer formula and infant clothing. And they also do offer pregnancy tests and ultrasounds for anybody that believes that they may be expecting. And lastly, Early Childhood Connections. They offer free family coaching to families with young children. And some of those services may include playgroups, community events, home visits, and just different referrals to other agencies in the community. Continuing on with resources for infants, children, and youth, I have highlighted Summit Point once again because of their intensive crisis stabilization team that they offer. And next we've got Families First, who we have worked closely with here at Safe Place, and they are an agency that provides some intensive case management services to those that are looking to aid in family preservation. So they primarily work with CPS. However, when they have openings, they will notify us so our clients can access their services. And Family First workers can provide assistance with transportation, funding to obtain documentation, assistance applying for housing, parenting classes, and much more. And something to note is that for our clients, the Families First program is completely voluntary. And lastly, we have Wraparound, which offers intensive individualized planning with children and parents who are at risk to identify different community resources and supports that may be available to them. We will now discuss resources for food and household goods. Many of our clients who obtain housing and are moving forward out of shelter are typically seeking assistance with obtaining furniture, household items, cleaning supplies, and more. And there are a variety of different resources in the community, such as Charitable Union, the Habitat Restore, and Goodwill that may be able to offer some assistance with these needs. Safe Place does also take donations on occasion, and we store those things in the garage. So if a client is leaving and moving into a new home, they can talk to their survivor advocate and arrange a time to go out to our Safe Place garage and pick out some items that they can take with them. We sometimes have larger furniture pieces. We have a lot of dishware and just small household goods that they can take. We also partner with BC Friends Church, and they have recently put together exit bags for our clients. So some of these bags included cleaning supplies, a piece of decor, and other small items that would be beneficial to our residents moving forward. And Safe Place does offer meal site and food pantry listings, and we do offer food in the shelter that we obtain from the food bank and donations, and that is to help supplement clients while they are in shelter transitioning. The final resource we are going to cover are those pertaining to pets and pet fostering while residents are in shelter. And unfortunately, there are so many survivors that don't leave an abusive relationship because they're afraid of what will happen to their pets. And all of us here at Safe Place are pet lovers, and we can absolutely empathize with our clients in that manner. And so thankfully, there are some options and some resources that survivor advocates can explore with the client so they can safely flee with their pets and they can be sure that they'll be in good hands when they come into shelter. One of these resources we utilize is a rescue called 4 Paws, and we have partnered with them to provide shelter to clients' pets while they are staying in shelter. In addition to fostering clients' pets, they have also offered assistance with getting the pet up to date on their shots and vaccinations, and have assisted with neutering and spaying them as well. I do want to say that many rescues are at full capacity, so this is something that we're able to offer when they do have availability, and that may not always be the case when a client is seeking shelter. So if we aren't able to work with a local rescue, there are safe havens for pets, and we do offer some information to local DV shelters that are pet friendly. And there is a website that offers a list of safe havens for pets while survivors are seeking shelter as well. So we can get clients information on different shelters in the area that they're looking for. And lastly, we do have Safe Escape grants. So those are grants that are available that will assist with the cost of pet boarding while an individual resides in shelter. And I will say this one is a little bit more of a timely process. However, if there is somebody that is seeking that assistance, they can work with their survivor advocate on that. As we wrap up this presentation regarding access, advocacy, and resources, I wanted to close with a discussion on the importance of the work that we are doing with survivors. And although this work is incredibly challenging, it is so rewarding to know that we have a role in offering survivors support, validation, and uplifting their voices when they felt that they no longer had one. And we really do have a unique privilege to play a small part in someone's story by offering them choices and resources that they may not know that they had, and ultimately empowering them to regain that control in their own lives. So whether we are just listening and validating, offering resources, providing DV education, or safety planning, we are planting seeds, in the wise words of our wonderful criminal justice advocate, Melissa. So as we wrap up, please know that the work that we're doing is so important and it's so crucial in making an impact, even though sometimes it may be challenging to measure. So I wanted to just take a moment, if you want to pause and read some of the feedback we've received from different survivors and just reflect on the impact that we are in fact making. Thank you for taking the time to listen to this presentation. I know that was a lot of information, so if you have any questions, please feel free to go ahead and contact me. I have listed my email, which is eflurry@safeplaceshelter.org, and my phone number, 269-965-6093, extension 23. I would be happy to go over any of the information and answer any questions that you may have.